All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. I am Tom. Hello, George.
Hello.
We are here on Friday of a big week for Bitcoin. A really big week for the Bitcoin miners, even though today wasn't the greatest day. And you can see Bitcoin was kind of level today, but huge week for the Bitcoin miners. So we're going to go through the weekly chart, what all the Bitcoin miners did this week, what they've done year to date. I think the tide is turning. We will see. There's a massive amount of optimism going on out there. So let's get into everything that's going on. We got some press releases. We got one press release that really surprised me from one of the Bitcoin miners this week. So we're going to go through all of that. We'll talk about, I see Audible Coast mentioning Cleanspark. We're going to talk about what's going on with them. They did not trade today. So I know that probably scared a lot of people. So we'll go through and discuss what happened there. So lots and lots to talk about. If you just got here, or if you're new here, or if you've been here, do us a favor and smash the like button, please. It does help the stream out in real time, big time. We got 16 likes. We're going for 100, and then we pushed almost 200 on last week's stream. So let's see if we can get some likes going with a record-breaking week. Bitcoin hitting multiple new all-time highs this week. So today is our celebration Friday. Hopefully everybody's portfolio was very green and looked good. Not just Bitcoin, whatever else you were in. The NASDAQ hit an all-time high. The S&P 500 hit an all-time high. I mean, things were on a roll. There were a few of the big companies that went absolutely ballistic this week. So we're going to talk about a couple of things that aren't necessarily Bitcoin or Bitcoin related because they are noteworthy, because they are monsters. So we'll talk about them as well. What's your first thought, George?
I have a permanent smile on my face.
We're here. We made it.
Yeah, we're hoarding Bitcoin now.
All right. Midway 1, who is a member. Thank you very much for being a member, and thank you very much for the super chat. Congrats on the week. This is from Midway. Congrats on the week. I bought back into Bitfarms this week at $1.94 average price. Do you think this is a decent price for a 12-month hold? Which price levels did you add shares of Bitfarms at this year? So, I mean, time is going to tell, and Bitfarms is one or two that I got my eye on. I really want to see them do what they said they were going to do. Everybody, if you've been here long enough, you know this is one of my really high conviction plays over time, but I did not love the last update. Having said that, under $2, pretty much this year, up until the last couple of months, every time it got under $2, I was buying. So, and I bought the dip endlessly on Bitfarms over really the last 4 years. So, you know, I don't think I think that's a good spot. I want to see them do what they're supposed to do. And, you know, my price target for Bitfarms is dramatically higher than where it's at right now.
But there is a whammy out there, Tom. There is a whammy.
What's the whammy?
And the whammy is they're going to have to announce an ATM at some point in time. Probably sooner than later.
Yeah, they're going to need more money. There's no doubt about it. And they're not the only ones. So, you know, you're going to have some more dilution.
They're probably going to be the next one.
I think you're right. I think, you know, if they're kind of in line next to probably start raising more money. More importantly, I want to see them add that exahash.
Right.
They've swapped out a lot of their fleet. They had 2 missions. They've pretty much swapped out most of their fleet. Their fleet is significantly more efficient than it was, you know, prior to the halving and a year ago. But the other piece of the puzzle was they were talking about getting to 21 exahash by the end of the year. So we want to see how they do on that. Of course, remember, none of this is financial advice. This is just George and I's opinion.
Do you think they can get to 21 without doing an ATM? He knows the answer, guys.
They're at 11.5 right now, and they need to get to 21. So let's just say you do the math.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I think they might be a little slow. All right, that's when I'm gonna buy them. After they announce that ATM, I'm gonna probably back it up a little bit if we got a good report.
Right, right, and that's the other piece of the puzzle. We need to see some action from them.
Wow, look at Ronald. Listen to this. Hello, fellows. Can you imagine the week I had? My 68,661 shares of core and the family shares of 40,700 shares of BT. Simply mind-blowing money rolling in. I won't do haha, I'll do cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Congratulations. That's these are the weeks. Listen, anybody who's here with those kind of numbers, holding that many shares or however many shares you're holding.
Conviction.
You had a high level of conviction. You suffered almost 7 months worth of pain. We'll get to that chart. We were stuck in a downward trend, a kind of a sideways downward trend for 7 months. And now it is starting to pay off. I think most of the reward is still ahead, in my opinion, on Bitcoin and more so on the Bitcoin miners. But we're going to have to wait and see. And the other thing to always remember is the volatility is real. So nothing goes up in a straight line. We could get a pullback. We could get retests before we go to some of these higher numbers. And I have some articles about 80,000, 90,000, Bitcoin 100,000. So, a lot of people are very excited right now, but I also will not be, I'm not going to get terrified if we go retest some numbers that are in the neighborhood a little lower than this. And we may not.
What's the fear and greed index looking like, Tom?
That's a good question, George. Let's
I have not looked at that at all.
Let's pull up. I mean, we've been in greed for a while, but let's see where we are.
Extreme
all
greed.
Right.
Okay, Sour Melling. Imagine where Bitcoin would be if Trump got shot and killed that day and Kamala won the presidency. Ouch.
So yesterday we were in extreme greed at 77, but I will tell you guys, and then I'm going to get to, okay, you just got to Sour Melon Gaming. Thank you, Sour Melon Gaming, for being a member. Thanks for the super chat. We were in extreme greed yesterday. We're in greed today, but even though technically this is the beginning of extreme greed, we've had periods of time where Bitcoin was in the 80s on the fear and greed index. We've had it pop up into the 90s. So when it does its thing, when we get the big runs, it can sustain these levels for, periods of time. So it feels to me like we're heading into one of those.
I think so.
So we're greed. We're in greed. We've been in greed. 1 month ago, we were neutral. We were at 49. Pretty much since then, we've been in greed. And we can go to the actual chart. You can see, I mean, we've been hanging out around 70 to 75 for, the last 20 days. And that's okay. That's okay. We can pop up. If I go to the 1 year, you can see we got as high as, what is this? We got as high as 90 in March of 2024. If I go out to the max, I mean, we spent weeks and weeks and weeks over 90 back in January of 2021. So, in the 4-year cycle, we're kind of coming up to that same type of spot. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that this type of action on the fear and greed index as time goes on. We're at 50 likes. Thank you, everybody. If you could, if you would, if you have not yet, if you just joined us, please smash the like button. It does help the live stream out big time in real time. And we have a new Bitcoin all-time high. The Bitcoin miners had a great week. I want to get to that next and just show you guys what the Bitcoin miners did this week and what they're doing year to date, because like I said, I really feel like we are now starting to turn the corner. This has been a vicious run of just patience is an understatement. Those of you who are here who withstood this beating should be congratulated, and hopefully you were rewarded financially for it. And let's see. Chart that I want. This is the chart that I want. So, I mean, this was basically 7 months. We were stuck in this. We finally started to break out of this in late October. You can see we broke above this. We kind of retested. Then we broke above it, had a perfect retest of this line, and now it's off to the races. So this was a long, brutal time. And as Bitcoin was kind of going sideways and down a little bit, the Bitcoin miners, other than 2 exceptions, were getting absolutely destroyed. And we've seen that turn around now. And I do think there's plenty more room to go. And if we go to this,
beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, this yellow line on this chart at 69,000 even. That was the all-time high from the previous cycle. So we broke out of that. This purple line here was the all-time high we set back in March, you know, when the ETFs were a couple of months up and running and Bitcoin just went off. And then it took all the way until November to get back here. So back in March, I don't know that a lot of us knew we were going to have to wait until November to start to get a breakout from there. And, you know, we got to points much lower. If you remember on August 5th, there was a panic in the entire market. We got down to $49,000 Bitcoin from, you know, $73,600 Bitcoin in March. So this was a tough road. But this is the good part.
Yeah. You remember all the people screaming, I think we've hit the top?
Yeah, we had an awful lot of people for months and months. There was a lot of talk. Well, that was it. That was the peak. We're done. That was the bull market. So, and I don't want to gloat early, right? To me, we're only just begun. If we end up at 70, we did hit $77,000 today, but that is not, I don't think that's anybody's goal here for this bull market for Bitcoin. So with that said, let's do a quick poll.
How many people hate CleanSpark? Is that what you're putting in? How long until CleanSpark gets sued? Is that the poll? You think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Give me just a second to type this up.
Oh, Sean, I hate CleanSpark head. 14s that expired today. LOL. Ouch. Well.
Oh, and they didn't trade. That's yeah. Awful.
Oh, that is. Hopefully you didn't have many contracts. I mean, those people are going to be all made whole. You know that?
You would think there's something there.
Yeah. That one's going to be. See, this is what happens when you focus on buying a jet instead of taking care of business. Scott's going to call up and yell at me, George, drop it about the jet. No one was talking about that.
They need a jet. Who doesn't need a jet?
I know everybody needs a jet.
Of course, I don't have a jet.
So is this for this bull run, for this cycle?
So this poll I just put up, what is your price target for Bitcoin in this bull run? And by this bull run, you know, whether that be sometime in the middle of 2025, some people think it may extend all the way out to 2026, but where do we go? Where do we top out before we have our pullback, a bear market, hopefully not a crypto winter? We'll see what happens there.
Pardon me. Hang on one second, Matt.
And Midway is saying CleanSpark and Iron are overdue to head back up to the upper portion of their ranges for this year. So Midway one, I agree with you. There was a time in May and June of this year CleanSpark and Iron were the only two companies that were green on the year, and they were so far ahead of everybody else. And then they have pulled back a lot. They're still way off of their 2024 highs. So I do think there's a lot of room left in those. So I agree with that. Not financial advice, but I agree with your opinion on that. Edmund saying, I'm really not looking to sell MicroStrategy until 2025, 2026. So Edmund's been calling MicroStrategy all along. We will take a look at MicroStrategy's performance today and year to date. So they, spoiler alert, they have beaten every single Bitcoin miner year to date this year, but we'll look at those numbers in specific. Riot had a great week, right? There's some companies starting to move. Some of the companies that lagged, we've been speculating, are some of these companies that lagged, is it because they're just not ever going anywhere? Or is it because they just haven't had their turn yet? People haven't rotated into them yet. We've started to see some of this turn. So let's take... one second. I don't know why this chart isn't up either. Updated it. All right. Let's go this. What happened? All right, sorry guys, very quick technical difficulties. I'll get this thing up in a second. George, anything while I'm killing time here? Okay. All right. This was this week. So the Bitcoin miners this week, you see Bitcoin had a massive week this week. Bitcoin up 11%. So that was a giant week. Bitcoin's already been on a run. We know we had the breakout. We had a huge day. A couple of days ago was the third or fourth best day of the year for Bitcoin. But look at the Bitcoin miners. With Bitcoin up 11%, look at this large grouping that did triple that. This is the type of behavior that we expect out of the Bitcoin miners once the breakout starts. Once Bitcoin, gets to a point where these companies, profitability equation starts to work better, and the FOMO starts on this. Now you're getting this 3-to-1 move here. And even most of the rest are at a 2-to-1 move to Bitcoin. So this was a phenomenal week. You're going to see some companies that, didn't have... Riot was in last place all year this year. We'll take a look at the year to date. They were up 36% this week. Cypher was up 36%. Now, TerraWolf has been the second best performer on the year, or the best performer, rotating back and forth with Core Scientific. They had a big week, up 33%. Core Scientific was up 30%. So the winners kept winning. Some of the laggers started to catch up. CleanSpark up 31% this week. That's without trading today. Hive up 31%. So there really wasn't a bad number on this list. I suppose, BitDeer underperformed a little, 14%, but it still did outperform Bitcoin itself. So, this is just... These are the weeks that we look for. And I want to go to a specific... I took a screenshot of one day because, we had a really good week a few weeks ago. And I said, this is a great looking week, but when things get going, we're going to have days that look like this. And sure enough, we had one of those days this week. So if I look at this chart, this is Wednesday. So here's the 12 that we follow plus MicroStrategy. This is just one day. This is what they did on Wednesday. Marathon up 19%. Cleanspark up 23%. Riot up 26% in one day. Iron 23%. Core 10%, TerraWolf 23%, BitDeer 9%, HUT 11%. Cypher was up 31% in one day. I mean, across the board, basically all but one hit double digits. And, Bitcoin itself was up almost 10%. You can see IBIT, that's the BlackRock ETF. So Bitcoin itself was up almost 10%. I mean, these are staggering moves for one day. So, this was one of the great days of the year for the Bitcoin miners. I hope this day was kind of a turning point where we start to see these moves really kick in and start to stick. Sour Melon Gaming said, I'm up 1,200% on Wolf and still not selling. Let's go, Wolf. $220. So there you go. And I mean, here, Wolf, which was already one of the best performers on the year, on Wednesday was up 23%. So this was the day after the elections in the United States. The markets roared. The Russell, which I like to keep a close eye on, and it's been lagging all of the other indexes. The Russell is the smaller companies. It was up almost 6% in one day on Wednesday. So you can see the uncertainty, like we talked about, whether you think it's the results of the election, but, for sure, the uncertainty of the election is behind us. And we got the one thing that very few people expected. We got a result the night of the election. And I talked on the members only stream about, to me, I thought that was one of the most important things that we could hope for. And I didn't think we were going to get it because, with such close elections, there's, the previous elections have been pretty frustrating as far as getting results. And we got them the night of the election. The market was thrilled about that. The Bitcoin miners went bananas, you can see. So, and it's not like they lost these gains. They added to these gains because if we go back to the list here, I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Bitcoin miners that were up 30% or more on the week this week. Pardon me. And I see Midway saying, very impressive week for Cypher. It closed today near its high for the week. Too great way to end the week. And Cosmic Contrarian saying, guys, don't be afraid to take profits on extreme overvaluations. So whether you think they're overvalued or they have a lot left to run, we know there's massive volatility. So for those of you who have a strategy of taking profits, right, I know many people kick themselves. Sometimes this is when FOMO kicks in and, you're buying when you should be selling. I'm not selling. I didn't sell anything at all. I didn't buy anything. I didn't sell anything. I'm kind of where I am right now. So I'm just hanging out and waiting for the rest of this run to happen. I believe we're just... I think we're still, I don't know if we can say early anymore. We're pretty close to still early on this, in my opinion. So obviously, this was a big week up, but we're going to go to year to date next, and we'll take a look at that because there's still some Bitcoin miners that have a lot of work left to do this year. So let's switch over to year to date. Okay, so this is the most Bitcoin miners that have been in the green in the last 7 months. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Bitcoin miners that are up on the year. So I always like to reiterate, Bit Digital's up 1%, Hive's up 3%. That is not the goal. Bitcoin's up 83%. So it's not that you're happy with a 3% return, but this is a part of turning the corner, going from red to green and then starting to run. You can see how fast these things run. Iron was red a month ago. They're up 54% now. Cypher was red a month ago. They're up 73% now. You can see the two giant winners. Let me get to Clive. Clive, thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. And thank you for being a member. Clive said, in just 3 days, my portfolio gained over $90,000. Led by Hive, it was worth the wait. With more gains expected, options in Hive, Riot, CleanSpark, Mara, NVIDIA, Hood, and Iron all expire in January 2026. So nice leap options. A lot of times, that's a really good way to maximize your percent profit. And congratulations, up $90,000 in 1 week. Congratulations, Clive. You know, that's real money. That's a lot of money. I don't care who you are. So you are to be congratulated for your conviction and hanging in there and waiting for this. And I do think, you know, there's a lot more ahead because you'll see you still have 4 Bitcoin miners in the red. One thing I'll say is Riot is no longer in last place. So they've spent a year in last place. They are now down, and these two flipped at the very end of the day, so I didn't update the chart. Marathon and Riot, you know, these two kind of seem to run together. They're down 17% and 18% on the year, so they are still in the red. But you can see the 4 that are in the red are just one good week away from being back in the green. Bitfarms is now the least performing stock out of the 12 Bitcoin miners that we're following. And we'll just quickly go to, if we look at MicroStrategy, you're going to see year-to-date MicroStrategy is up 328%. So it was a little flat today. Today was not, you know, the big day for the Bitcoin miners, but up, you know, up 328% year-to-date. In the last 5 days, this says it's up almost 18%. So, you know, a good week and by far. So at 328%, if we take a look, the TeraWulf's now up 244% year to date. So if anybody that's taken this ride, congratulations. Core Scientific up over 200%. So, you know, these are companies that were up 300 or 400% last year, and now they're up another couple 100% this year on top of that. So, you know, some of these, there are people making money in these. I know that there's mass frustration, and depending on when you started buying, you know, you might be banging your head against the wall. But for some people, the patience has paid off huge. Welcome back, George.
Hey, you know what we should do in next poll we should do?
What do you got?
If the day after the election was the most money you've ever made in a single day in the stock market.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we'll finish this one. What is your price target for Bitcoin for this bull run? So 100,000 or less, 28% think we're going to top out at 100,000 or less. So that's a big percentage, more than a quarter of the people. In first place by far was 150,000. 41% had that as their price target. 17% had 200,000. 14% had over 200,000. So that, you know, 200,000 or over is 31% if you add them together. So this was an interesting. We'll keep our eye on this and kind of do this weekly and see what people think. My number I said a year ago, and I'm sticking to it, is 150,000. So I kind of agree with the group. But what I've always said all along is I'm certainly not going to be shocked if we see bigger numbers than that.
Tom, is this as of the close on today, by the way?
These changes?
Yeah.
Yes, this is through the close today.
Wow.
So we now have 8 of the 12 Bitcoin miners that are positive year to date. That we have not had that in the last 7 months. So we are trending in the right direction. Hopefully there's more to follow. So Edmund is saying, what happened to CleanSpark today? So let me go to that press release because this was a technicality. The only thing that I will say is it mystifies me that it took them all day and they didn't clear this up and get open and start trading again. Maybe there's some review process where they were just stuck for the day. But let me get to that press release because this really was just an administrative cleanup type of thing. And I can't believe that they were not allowed to trade for the day. What happened to this?
There
Here
is a
we go.
reason why I think 150 is too low on Bitcoin as you get into that. And that's because of the 5% reserve that the United States is going to purchase.
So that's a good point, George. I got an article on that, so we can explain more about that. So CleanSpark comments on trading halt related to clerical warrant conversion error. So the first thing that they tell people is there's no change to the company's business operations or financial statements. So this was totally clerical. They made a mistake, and it has to do with, here. The warrants were originally issued by Grid Infrastructure and converted into CleanSpark warrants in connection with the company's acquisition of Grid on October 30th. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'll be done in 20 seconds. In connection with the consummation of the acquisition of Grid and pursuant to the terms of the merger agreement, the warrants were to be adjusted to reflect the merger's exchange rate of 0.06 blah, 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 blah of shares of the company's common stock for each share of Grid common stock. As a result, the outstanding 13,800,000 warrants are to represent the right to purchase an aggregate of 960,395 shares of the company's common stock at a price, by the way, a strike price of $165. However, the exchange ratio was erroneously applied to the warrants in a certain document included in the listing application filed with the NASDAQ. So they got this one number wrong in their listing, and they had to halt trading. And I assumed that, trading would be halted for a few minutes, and then, a half an hour went by, an hour, and, by the end of the day, CleanSpark did not trade today. So, to somebody's point earlier that George honed in on, if you held options on CleanSpark that expired today, you got stuck. So
this was scrod.
I haven't seen this. I have not seen this. This is not something that happens on a regular basis. Trading gets halted for various reasons. A whole day for a clerical error. I just don't think I've ever seen this happen before. So I'm not exactly sure why they weren't able to clean this up. It seems like a simple calculation. So
Tom, I can't even imagine how much money it's going to be. We're talking at least 100 million.
I don't know. Who knows? I don't know what people's rights are. But it's not.
Their people's rights are to be able to exercise their shares, and they took those rights away from them. Trust me, it's at least 100 million. And what about the options or the derivatives? That's the bigger problem.
Yeah, to me, that's the one that, if your option expired today, did they have weekly options? I don't even remember if CleanSpark has weekly options. So if they have weekly options and they expired today and they were in the money and you couldn't exercise them, then you got burned. So
what are they going to come back Monday? And I can't even imagine, because people or people. I use the word people, smally like that, because I'm talking about hedge funds, the people that have all the money. They're the greediest SOBs out there, and they're going to make sure that they get the benefit of whatever mistake was made by CleanSpark today.
Cosmic Contrarian is saying huge mistake by CleanSpark. There will be issues, I expect. So he agrees with you.
Right. You need to write it this way, though.
And Sean's confirming that they do have weekly options.
Wow.
So people got burned.
I can't even imagine. And people like to sue, just period, anyways. I'm going to put this up, by the way. This is funny.
So
I won't say it.
on your screen on the big board, you'll see on TradingView, they show CleanSpark up 4.46%, but that was yesterday's activity. They did not update this. This should just be zero. It did not trade today at all. So that was the closing price yesterday, and there was no trading today.
Oh, wow. Wow. Sorry.
So that's what happened with CleanSpark. That's number one. Should we get to the one that really?
What's $100 million? What's $100 million for a company? What's CleanSpark market cap? 3.5 billion.
Let's see. I thought they went over $3 billion.
You three something. So I mean, you know, 3 billion, 100 grand. I mean, 100 million.
Yeah, you're
really
right on,
nothing.
George. $3.5 billion.
Yeah, I mean that's nothing if you think about it. Not even freaking 10%.
It's, you know, nobody. Yes, but nobody really likes to. That's just burning money, throwing it in the garbage.
I know, but there is somebody, and you know who that is? Attorneys.
Well, there you go. That's right. They always win.
Monday is a holiday.
So Barry C is pointing out Dutch Brothers, which was a members only pick. And so let's see, they were up 5% today. Year to date, they're up almost 50%. Over the last year, they're up 77%, but a big jump late right here. So, you know, there was a member pick that's done very, very well. So thanks for pointing that out, Barry.
Do you have all the members pick? Are they just in videos, or do you have
they're all archived in the members only section, so you can see them all. Monday is a holiday, so is the market closed Monday? We got to verify this if in the United States.
Yes, Midway, I agree. Thank you for everybody who served. The market is still open on Monday, according to Harrison.
Yes. So the market's open on Monday.
So, Tom, what do you think about, like, did we lower interest rates again or no?
Yeah, so let's get to that. Yes, we did, George. Okay, so let's get to this was their statement. The committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point to 4.25 to 4.5 to 4.75. So we got our 25 basis point rate cut as expected. People are expecting less and less out of these rate cuts. So if we go over here and I press refresh, you'll see. So now in the December meeting, there's a 35%, the futures are showing a 35% chance of no rate cut in the December meeting. I will tell you personally, I will be surprised if they do not do another 25 basis point rate cut in the December meeting, but there's a 35% chance right now built into the Fed watch tool that they're not going to do that. And they put all their normal language in. And he had some comments to say, but basically they said they're going to be data driven. They're going to look at the data and they're going to make their decision each meeting based on the data. So they also asked him, you know, is he worried that he's going to get fired? And he was pretty clearly said that the president it's not within their capability. They don't have the right to fire him from his job. I think his term expires in 2026 anyway, but I don't think we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see Jerome Powell going anywhere.
Financing for them, or are they self-funded?
Does
the federal are they self-funded, or does the Federal Reserve get funded from?
No, they're self-funded.
Yeah.
So, and they're independent. Ish.
Ish. And the big on the ish.
So, you know, ordinarily this news would have dominated, but this came out on Thursday. The results of the election came out, you know, late Tuesday night, so Wednesday's trading day. All of this, the two of those things put together led to, let me get to an article here. Bitcoin ETFs see record $1.3 billion of inflow. BlackRock's IBIT accounted for most of the inflow at $1.1 billion. So on Thursday, BlackRock bought over $1 billion. Their ETF bought over $1 billion, 1.3 billion across all the ETFs. And if I go to the chart and look at this day by day, the day after the election, there was $621 million of Bitcoin bought by the ETFs. And the next day, 1.37 billion. So $2 billion of Bitcoin inflow into the ETFs in the 2 days after the election. I think that number will be a lot smaller today. Bitcoin was pretty sideways today. We'll see what happens. But, the knee-jerk reaction that we got was clearly Bitcoin up, the market up, everything up. The ETFs, BlackRock posting $1 billion day. So this was a record day since these things started. So Thursday was the biggest day in the ETF history. Karen's saying, and I think this is true, I think Monday is a bank holiday, so transferring money in or out would be delayed.
This is interesting to watch. So I'm looking at the 10K challenge, as we like to call it, 10 to nothing. Back to 10K, hopefully.
Yeah.
10 to nothing. So the lowest on this was $1,600.
Yeah.
Right now, this thing's we picked the wrong time to do it. But what's interesting, though, is where it's at right now. We got back up to $8,000 a few months ago, right? We did a few trades. Now we only have Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and Marathon. And we're back up to $5,745.78. Tom and I are betting if it's going to get to 10,000 this year or not.
So I'll show you to take a look, to put that in perspective. If you look at Cleanspark from where they closed today, or should I say yesterday, because they didn't trade today. To get back to their highs for the year, they got to go up 82%. That's just to get to their 2024 highs. Now, remember, Bitcoin's at a new all-time high. So I would, my price target for Cleanspark's a lot higher than this. So that's an 82% increase. And we have Riot and Marathon. Are those the other two?
No, Bitfarms and Marathon.
Okay, Bitfarms. So let's take a look at Marathon. Marathon, to get back to its highs of the year 2024, has to go up 77%. And last but not least, so Bitfarms, to get back to its highs of the year 2024. And remember, I'm talking about the highs for the year 2024 because Bitcoin's taken out its highs for the year 2024. So that would be 75%. So if all three of these just get back to where they were earlier this year, we'll be back over 10,000.
So February 16th was the high. February 16th was the high.
And that was just around when, Bitfarms was near its high and Marathon was near its high. So
and it was over 8,000. I think it was $8,200 what it got up to.
And then,
That's crazy.
Well, we ran into, remember, I'm going to bring up this chart. We ran into this. This was 7 months. So this was the price action on Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin miners did much worse than this, with two exceptions: Core Scientific and TeraWolf, and I'll also throw in there, for Edmund's sake, MicroStrategy. So, those three notwithstanding, the Bitcoin miners got beat up in this 7 months.
So we are down 60% from our high of this year. Would you ever think that would have been the case?
I did not see this 7-month trend coming like this, but I will say we are now 200 days after the halving. I think we're either 200 or 201 days after the halving. In the last two cycles, I think it was day 215 and day 235 that was the day that Bitcoin broke out above its previous all-time high and went ballistic in the next 30 to 60 days. So, we're almost right there at that same time frame. So, 215 days one time, 235 days. If it took 200 days this time, then I'm okay with that. I think that means there's more upside ahead, and we haven't even gotten that big, giant run, right? That's just breaking out of our high. That going to our new high is the question. Where's the new high? The majority think it's at 150, but we got plenty that think it's at 200 or over 200. 32% think we're going to go to 200 or over 200 in this cycle.
So, Tom, getting back to CleanSpark, do you think on Monday when they are allowed to sell again that there will be a sell-off? Or do you think it would just be?
I don't think there's going to be a sell-off. I think it'll be, I think they're going to do whatever the other Bitcoin miners do.
Okay.
That's my opinion. We'll see. I could be wrong about that. This is a very bizarre circumstance. Having your trading halted for the day on a clerical technicality seems a little bit strange. I would imagine the first few hours will be just chaotic. That could very well be. People may scramble. And they've run up to a point, and I will say, I think it was on last Friday's stream. Let's go to CleanSpark.
As you do that, Tom, I have to tell you, I'm a little hurt.
You're hurt?
88 likes and almost 200 people watching. I'm hurt.
Well, if you just joined us, or if you have not pressed the like button, please do us a big favor and hit the like button. Last week we got almost 200 likes. This week we're not even to 100 yet. So let's see if we can get the likes up. Let's get people here celebrating. We need to raise awareness for the Bitcoin miners, because I think the run has just begun. And so what I was going to show you was, last Friday, CleanSpark was at $10.08. I think it closed at. Let's see, it closed at $10.33. So one of the things I said, I called out a few, and again, not financial advice. This is just me looking, and I look, I have these boxes. This traded inside of a very reliable range for a long period of time, and it was between like 14 and, a high of $20. So to me, I had mentioned anything under $12 to me is just crazy time for CleanSpark, in my opinion. So, and is at $10.33 last Friday. And I thought that was ridiculous. And a lot of these prices, that's why I think there's a lot of room to go. I think you're going to see CleanSpark, although it didn't trade today, yesterday just kind of got back to the verge of the bottom of this trading range that I think is where it more naturally belongs. And then I think ultimately it should break out of this trading range to the upside, right? As Bitcoin, if and when Bitcoin does make its, run this bull market and get to wherever we think it's going, 100, 150, 200, who knows?
MicroStrategy to 3650. CleanSpark will have to double the ATM to make up for the lost day to pay the bills. Yeah, I know. It's going to be an interesting day. Monday could be a freaking just wow.
Midway saying too many people are too bearish on the miners now, with Bitcoin now acting extremely strong. So I agree, Midway. This is what I'm saying. That's why I said I think we're still early in this. We still have 4 Bitcoin miners that haven't even gotten to zero for the year this year, when Bitcoin's up 80-something%. I think there's too much pessimism. The people checked out, and money rotates. So I just don't think we've gotten the rotation back in across the board yet. Obviously, the Bitcoin miners that have focused on talking about high-performance computing and AI have had a little bit better runs, because that has kept them in the spotlight a little bit more. But Bitcoin's going to come, if Bitcoin's at $120,000, I think we'd all be pretty shocked if the Bitcoin miners weren't making some nice moves at that point. And to put in perspective, Iron, in their monthly operational update, said their energy cost per Bitcoin was $20,000. So even at Bitcoin $77,000, now that's not their total cost, that's their energy cost. There's other costs, there's indirect costs, but these companies are cash flow positive in a big way. A lot of them are now, with Bitcoin breaking out, a lot of them are already going to be profitable. So I think we got a lot of good stuff ahead. That's what I feel like. This is what we've been waiting for, and it feels like this is maybe just the beginning. Now, we've been fooled before, or I will say more specifically, I've been fooled before. So,
Yeah, me too.
We'll see it when and if we see it. But for the time being, I'm going to go back to this chart. I'm going to take, this was this week. I'm going to take good news as good news. right? This is what the Bitcoin miners did this week. If you weren't here earlier, we went through this. We had 6 Bitcoin miners that were up 30% or more on the week this week. I mean, that would be a huge move for a stock on the year for most of the stock market. And that was this week. And then, most of the rest of them were up 20%. So 20%, 30%. Cypher and Riot were up 36% this week. Bitcoin had a fantastic week, up 11%.
You should actually have like a rest in peace symbol, like a graveyard symbol. And then we can talk about this sector. And you know what that is?
I'm going to guess EV.
EVs. Yes, sir. EVs. How is California going to be able to achieve their dream?
It's funny because while the EV sector, I think, is dying on the vine, I'm going to go to an article here. Tesla hits $1 trillion.
Remember in wrestling when the Undertaker came in? That's the song you need. Ding, ding. Sorry. Hopefully somebody gets that.
So if you look, Tesla is now back over $1 trillion. And if I go to the 5-year, it's been years. Tesla was over $1 trillion back in 2021. So, and it looks like here in March of 2022. So that's 2.5 years ago. It's now back over $1 trillion company. It was up 8% today. And I've been saying for a long time, I think ultimately this is going to be the only electric vehicle company in the United States. There's some big China, there's one gigantic Chinese electric vehicle company that I think will thrive. There's other parts of the world that I think EVs have a much, they make a lot more sense in other parts of the world. Here in the US, I just don't know that we're ever going to get the critical mass that we talked about or thought about. Tesla seems to have reached its point where, it's a global company and they're going to do their thing. I even think you're going to see General Motors and Ford, companies that put, 20 or 30 or 40 billion dollars into EV, switch and start to slide over to using some EV technology, start to slide over to that hybrid model, which I think makes a lot more sense in the United States. So I understand, and there's a lot of places in Europe, in China, big time, the EVs make more sense. So, I don't think the EVs cease to exist, but I think their portion of the U.S. market is going to be a lot less than maybe people thought, in my opinion. Thoughts, George? It sounds like you agree.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's just, well, first of all, I mean, here's a great example, Tom. Meta, Zuckerberg, was trying to build a humongous nuclear power plant. But you hear what stopped him?
No.
The bees.
The
bees. There was some type of bee, and this is true, by the way. He's going to build a humongous AI spot. I don't know where it was or anything. I read this article. I was just like, unbelievable. And there were some rare bees on this land, and he had to stop his plans to build this nuclear power plant for the largest AI database.
Well, this happens more than people think. There's a gigantic computer chip building waiting to be built in Syracuse, New York, and it's getting held up. I don't remember which animal, but there's some type of nature situation that's holding up the entire. I can't remember exactly what it is, but they haven't even broken ground on it, and
right.
And Andrew, thank you for saying what we always get when we talk about Tesla. Tesla isn't a car company. They're an energy company. So I know Tesla does a lot more than cars, but I call them, I'll tell you why I call them a car company. That's where all their revenue comes from. They build cars, they sell cars. I know they do a lot of other stuff. They're compiling a lot of data. They have a lot of technology in the works. They've made a lot of promises, and they may fulfill a lot of those promises. But cars are obviously a big part of what Tesla does. But it is their, they had first mover advantage in this space in a lot of ways. And, there's a reason Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. He's a smart person, and, he has multiple multi-billion-dollar companies. There's not too many people that can say that. I'm not sure there's anybody else that can say that. So
how did the other top 7 companies do?
Well, let's go to the list, because guess what? There is a new champion. The biggest company in the world by market cap is now NVIDIA, which happened this week. They passed Apple. So Apple and Microsoft had been trading the mantle for years and years and years. And you can see you've got 3 companies that are just way bigger. NVIDIA's at $3.6 trillion. Apple's at $3.4 trillion. Microsoft's at $3.1 trillion. Then you go down to Google or Alphabet, which is at a $1 trillion drop off. So Google and Amazon are $2 trillion companies. Then you've got a bunch, not too much. You're at number 9, you're at $1 trillion. Berkshire Hathaway, if they have a good day tomorrow, they'll be at $1 trillion. So you have 10 companies at $1 trillion. The rest of the company in the world, less. And you've got 3 that are triple that. So NVIDIA, Apple, and Microsoft have an outsized effect on all the markets, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and I believe NVIDIA was added to the Dow. I could be wrong about that. I think they're going to be in the Dow now. So, now they're going to be affecting that too. Bonnie said, good observation on hybrids. That's what seems to make sense here in the United States. We have a lot of rural areas, and, the EVs in high density population areas, they make a lot more sense than they do in places where, it's 30 minutes to the grocery store. So, whereas a hybrid works great for that. So that's my thoughts. That's why I think that. And Edmund is saying, Tom, Bitcoin would be number 6 on that list. So that's a great point, Edmund. And I do think, it won't be too long before it will be number 1 on this list. And really, it's real target, it's real competition, and it's got a ways to go, is gold, right? So that's the ultimate goal, is for Bitcoin to pass gold. But gold, I think, is at, 13 trillion, maybe more now.
So that's a really good thing. And I don't know how to say your name. Pargamara. Peter Swift. The end is near, Tom. What do you think about that? Throw that out the window now?
Yeah.
The sky is falling?
I don't see the sky falling. Who knows? Anything can happen on any given day. None of us know the future, but I just don't think you can have your entire investment thesis that some horrible thing is going to happen out of left field. I don't see any underpinning.
Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Someday, and hopefully that day is not in our lifetimes.
Pig Mara. You're probably right, Pig Mara. Is that because you don't like Mara?
So
yeah. Sorry, Tom.
Got somebody saying, won't be long until CleanSpark is bigger than Marathon. It increased mining Bitcoin by 32%, and Mara only did like 5%. So let me go to that chart. I don't know. Maybe we didn't look at that chart yet. This is what everybody has now reported for the month of October. And there were some standouts. And to me, by far, CleanSpark was the biggest standout. And then I'm going to get to the press release that came out this week that really, really surprised me. But first, let's do this. So if we take a look with this column here that has the green at the top, that is October. So Marathon was up 2% month over month. They still mined more Bitcoin than anybody else. But last month, they mined, in September, they mined 705 Bitcoin, and CleanSpark was in second with 493. This month in October, they mined 717. CleanSpark was in second with 665. CleanSpark mined 35% more Bitcoin in October than they did in September. So there were 3 companies that jump off the page to me and they're here in second, third, and fourth. Riot mined 505 Bitcoin. That was a 23% increase month over month. And remember, the difficulty level keeps hitting new all-time highs, yet these companies are having big growth in the amount of Bitcoin they mine. And it's because they're adding exahash. So you've got Iron that went from 347 to 439. That's a 27% increase. Now, if you look at this analysis next to it, you're going to see in October they had 21 exahash, and in September they had 21 exahash. So it looks like they added nothing. But what's important is most of that exahash in September was added in the last third of the month. So, you know, for 2/3 of the month of September, they didn't have all that exahash. So that's why their number jumped so much in October. That was all online for the whole month. So, you know, those are gigantic, gigantic increases. There's only one company this month that mined less Bitcoin than last month, and that is TeraWulf, and that's simply because they sold one of their facilities. So, you know, I really think this is an outlier. This was a really good month for the Bitcoin miners, but, you know, if I had to pick the winner, you know, at 665 Bitcoin mined, CleanSpark is on fire. And so, you know, I know they had a misstep today. They didn't trade. We'll see what becomes of that. But operationally speaking, I mean, that's incredibly impressive.
If for some reason, if CleanSpark got below $10 on Monday, Tom, I think I'd have to freaking mortgage my house.
If CleanSpark drops below $10, you know, I've long since said I'm done buying unless something dramatic and drastic happens. I think that would qualify.
Yeah, that would definitely. So everybody, I guess this is a question, and it's a hard answer, but how much does it cost to mine one Bitcoin, Tom?
So it depends from company to company. If you look at we'll take a look at a couple of the operational updates. I think I have most of them open. I don't think I have Iron's open. And not everybody reports that. Riot, I think, announced in their quarterly report, I think their cost per coin was $35,000 for the third quarter. Iron's electricity cost per coin was about $20,000. So it ranges. It ranges depending on the efficiency of your fleet. But, you know, there's still companies that are paying $40,000 a coin or more. But at $77,000 a coin, even those companies are starting to have a lot of gross profit. There's also companies, you know, in the $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 range. Now, that's not all in. Again, that is electricity is the vast majority of your direct cost, and that's the cost of their electricity is what most of these companies report. So, but a lot of these companies are making, you know, they're already cash flow positive in a big way, you know, at this point, even at these numbers. And if Bitcoin gets to where we're going, so the answer is it's different for every single company. There are companies whose fleet efficiency, and we'll take a look at some of these.
I'm doing a poll. Real quick, was Wednesday your best return on investment for one day? I'm just interested in that.
Yeah.
And then I'll do your poll, Bonnie, but I don't think that poll is really going to be fair. But I'll do it.
Okay, so I'll go to Bitfarms, for instance. Ben Gagnon stated, while we are pleased we have reached our year-end efficiency goal of 21 watts per terahash, so they were, you know, a year ago, they were over 30. Now they're at 21, and they intend on getting lower than that. So that's most of the big Bitcoin miners that we follow have gotten somewhere down to 20 or 21. They're saying watts per terahash. So there are still companies, you know, at 30 or 35. And those companies, obviously, you know, if you're at 35, then your cost, and it's more than just what your watts or joules per terahash are, because then it's also what's your contract, how much are you paying for electricity? So how much are you paying for the electricity, and how efficient are you being with the electricity? So, you know, we got to look at these quarterly financial statements to start to get an understanding. And they change so dramatically, especially from quarter to quarter right now, since most of these companies really over the last 6 months have swapped out the majority of their fleet. So you're going to start to see better numbers. See if anybody else is reporting their. There's a couple of companies.
I should have put best day or second best day. It was technically it was my second best day, by the way.
Okay.
But 55% so far their best day. That's just crazy.
So here's TeraWolf's monthly operational update. For October, their average power cost per self-mined Bitcoin was $36,000. 36,700, up a little bit from 35,000 the month before. But it's, at 72,000, that's a 50% gross profit margin. And their joules per terahash was at 22 joules per terahash. So, and that's down from 24.6. So you can see all these people continue to get their fleet more and more efficient. And, if they can manage this number, if they can manage their overhead number, and if Bitcoin keeps rising, the profitability equation obviously gets to a point where, instead of people running scared from these, they're at some point in previous cycles, and I think it will happen in this cycle, we're going to experience FOMO in this sector. And we are definitely not there yet. We are not in the neighborhood of FOMO for the Bitcoin miners. And Midway said, Iron's electricity costs are now amazingly good. Not too far away from Cypher's very cheap electricity costs. Yeah, Iron reported, I think, $20,000 electricity cost per coin. So, that's exceptional. When you're, if you're getting 70,000 a coin and it's costing you 20, that works.
Well, and what was I going to say? Oh, do you think, Tom, this is a crazy question. Do you think that another company could open up like MicroStrategy and just buy Bitcoin?
I don't think that just like we talked about with Tesla having first mover advantage, MicroStrategy has over 250,000 Bitcoin. I don't think there's another company that can adopt their formula and scale up to the size that they are. So I think they will always be the industry leader in that. Having said that, I do think a lot of the Bitcoin miners can use a hybrid strategy and start to use that MicroStrategy formula to raise money through convertible debt to buy Bitcoin in addition to mining Bitcoin. So no, I don't think anybody, MicroStrategy has the most Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I don't think any other company can jump in and do what they do because they have too much. Michael Saylor is, he is the guru. And, between Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, they have instilled enough confidence and they have a proven track record to the point where I don't think another company can catch up to what they're doing. But there are other companies like we've talked about, like you've mentioned, George. You've got your Apples and your Microsofts that, have 75 or $100 billion sitting on their balance sheet. Could they go out and buy, a couple of $1 billion worth of Bitcoin on any given day? That, that would be nothing.
Do you think once it's a reserve currency, that's going to be more likely that, with the United States planning on buying 5% of it, do you think that will make it more likely that Apple, Google, so on and so forth is going to buy some?
Let me get to that article and then I will answer that question. That is a great question.
Because I haven't factored that into my price of the equation of Bitcoin. When you start to think of where it's going, you have to realize there's going to be a trickle-down effect once the United States makes it a reserve currency. And I did say currency.
All right. I gotta, once again, I don't know why some of my tabs didn't open, but let me find this. I'll find this in 1 second.
Cast your votes. I'll be closing the poll out any minute and going to something else. Any ideas for polls, please put them in the chat.
Sorry, guys. I don't know why these links are doing this to me lately. All right, so I'm not finding this right away, but we'll just talk about it. Essentially, what the Trump administration has proposed is that Bitcoin become a reserve, just as we have for oil, just as we have for gold, setting a limit at 5% of all the Bitcoin that exists. So effectively, that would mean that the United States over time would build a reserve of just a little over 1 million Bitcoin. So, George, to your question, if the United States sets the precedent that they're having Bitcoin as a reserve, yes, I think that is going to open doors. There's very small countries that have gone past that and adopted Bitcoin as their currency. There's going to be countries that start to build reserve. You're going to see companies pile in. This is where, so if we're at near the beginning of this bull run for Bitcoin overall, I still think we're in super early days. I know that the return since the beginning of Bitcoin is, practically infinite. When it was trading from a penny and now it's $77,000. But most of the adoption for Bitcoin still hasn't happened. Most of the world's money is 0% invested in Bitcoin. So, there's no guarantee that will, Trump's proposed plan will go through. But if it does go through and they do start to compile Bitcoin as a reserve, then definitely I do think you're going to see a lot of the rest of the world follow. And that would be a big cue. You're going to see a lot of companies follow. And I think the ETFs are already starting to serve this purpose. MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor is out there giving, corporate seminars and lectures on strategies on how to start to get Bitcoin on your balance sheet. So we haven't even scratched the surface of the amount of money that's going to go into Bitcoin. It's $1.4 trillion, $1.5 trillion right now. That's just, press refresh here, $1.5 trillion. So, I mean, that's not, I know that is a lot of money, obviously, but comparatively speaking, I mean, you've got, I don't think Vanguard even, you got $10 trillion in Vanguard. I don't think they even let their people buy the ETFs right now. So, there's piles, there's 10 trillion here, 20 trillion there. There's piles of money everywhere that haven't even begun to move into Bitcoin. So yes, I do think, George, that would be a gigantic catalyst.
Huge. Is that what we're saying? Huge. There it is. 50-50. 57 votes. Going to end it if somebody wants to break it. Oh, 51. That's awesome, though, to think that. 50% was our best day ever Wednesday for the 1 day single return.
I mean, I don't know if it was my best day ever, but it was absolutely positively in my top 5, maybe my top 3. So that was a great day.
I gave people wrenches today, by the way. That's a good question. Let's do a real simple one. Bitcoin to 100K before the end of the year.
You want to post that, or you want me to?
Yep, I'm putting it up.
So we're holding strong. We closed yesterday. The gold line is where we were at the close of the U.S. equity markets yesterday. So you can see we kind of dipped below that overnight. We pulled above it today, and then, right around the close today, and ever since, we're hanging around just under 77,000. But we did get to $77,312. So that is our new all-time high. This is the TradingView Coinbase chart. So every chart will have a tiny little bit of a different number, but we got over $77,000 today for the first time in the history of Bitcoin. And, for those of all of us who sat inside of this 7-month wedge, endlessly feeling like, we just fake out after fake out after fake out after fake out, we finally have broken out to the upside.
I don't know if it will get to 100, but it's going to be real close. I mean, if you think it's going to be 95, let's call that 100.
So here we go. Here's an article. Cardano pumps 16%. Bitcoin could pop to 100K after the Fed rate cut. This article came out today. Cryptocurrencies are surging as a bullish backdrop gives traders reason to set a $100,000 price target for Bitcoin in the near term. And, you know, this
That's
is generic.
crazy.
This is just somebody writing something. But Bitcoin has traders eyeing $100,000 in the near term due to recent highs and the Federal Reserve's rate cut. Significant inflows into Bitcoin ETFs signal bullish market sentiment. So I will go back to this chart because I do think when you see just BlackRock alone buy $1 billion of Bitcoin into their ETF, and, you know, I understand it's their customers, it's not them. They had $1 billion of inflow in one day. So, and that's on top of, you know, they had 872 million a couple of weeks ago, 642 million. So, you know, we've seen the inflows. This is now at $25.5 billion of inflow into the Bitcoin spot ETFs. And I think this has got nowhere to go but up. And it's gone up dramatically. This was at, you know, a month ago, this was at 17.5 trillion. Now it's at 25.5 trillion. So we just had a big push up, more to come, in my opinion. Just checking my list here to see what we've missed. So for those members who were with us on the members only live stream, we talked about this already, but Bitcoin mining difficulty tops 100 trillion for the first time, piling pressure on the small miners. So the Bitcoin mining difficulty level was adjusted and it hit a new all-time high again. So in the past, there has been a correlation. The bigger the network, the higher the difficulty level, the higher the price of Bitcoin. So, you know, that doesn't hold true on a daily basis, but, you know, as a trend over time, that has been the case. So we now have a new all-time high difficulty level for the Bitcoin mining network. And October was an all-time high difficulty level. And if we go back, you're going to see, you know, almost every single Bitcoin miner still managed to mine more Bitcoin in October than they did in September. So it was a very impressive month. And we had two Bitcoin miners. Marathon added 3.3 exahash. They are now over 40 exahash. But CleanSpark added 3.7 exahash. And by the way, the month before, CleanSpark added 5 exahash. So they've added 8.7 exahash in the last 2 months. You're going to see.
Is that true?
Yeah.
No. That Warren Buffett started buying Bitcoin?
Oh, I do not know.
Sorry.
I don't know
Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack what you're saying. Pardon.
I can neither confirm or deny, but that's worth looking up. So, you know, you've got a lot of these companies still with big growth plans. So the network is going to keep growing. The difficulty level is going to keep growing, but the percentage of the overall network that's made up by the U.S. publicly traded Bitcoin miners, and by that I don't mean that they're located in the U.S., but they're traded on the NASDAQ, continues to grow. And you can see these three companies had massive growth. HUD actually had 18% growth month over month. And that brings me to the press release that I found very surprising. This caught me off guard. This was from HUD, and this is not it. Come on now. Where'd it go? Just a second. Here we go. HUD 8 announces initial ASIC fleet upgrade. Upgrade expected to improve average fleet efficiency from 31.7. So remember, we were talking, everybody else was down around 20. HUD hasn't bought new machines. If you look back, it's been 2.5 years since they've bought new machines. Now, they got an option on 15 exahash worth of machines, but they didn't buy any of them. This update has them buying machines. So you can see they're going to swap out their fleet. This is going to bring them from 31.7, which means, you know, with the difficulty level where it is, their cost per coin must be so high that it's not even worth mining. It's going to bring it down to 19.9 joules per terahash, and it's going to increase their amount by 66%. So you can see they are now at 3.7 exahash. So their mining operations are all but non-existent. They have 3.7 exahash running at 31.7 joules per terahash. That's a company that's not mining Bitcoin anymore. But now you're talking about getting to 9.3 exahash, drastically increasing their efficiency. And they do mention somewhere in here, this purchase, so we go. This purchase builds on our previous announced 15 exahash partnership with Bitmain to host the ASIC miners, and we look forward to further development in our relationship with Bitmain. So they're using those to host. There's some partnership there, but they do have an option to buy those 15 exahash. And now that I see them buying, machines here, it has been 2.5 years. So to me, I thought, I've been saying, are they ever going to buy another machine again? Well, here you go. We've had a conversation on a couple of different live streams. Have they given up on this part of their business? So to me, this was a surprise. I really started to think that they had, but here we go. Here's a purchase. Does this surprise anybody else? What do people think of this?
I think they're trying to be relevant.
Well, I mean, this still only gets them to 9.3 exahash. So you can see if we go back to the chart we were just looking at, Marathon's already at 40. CleanSpark's already at 31. Riot's already at 29. Iron's at 21, on their way to 30 this year. Core Scientific's at 20. So, this is going to get them over the next 3 to 6 months up to 9. So it's still going to put them hanging out at the bottom of the list. They're starting to be the haves and the have-nots on this list. And I cut the line off, Bitfarms, BitDeer, Cypher, TeraWolf, they have some growth plans, but they really, Cypher's growth plans were always planned to be later. So they plan to get into the 30s. TeraWolf does have some growth plans, but nowhere near that. Bitfarms plans to get to 35 next year and 21 this year, but I guess we'll all believe that when we see it.
I'm in shock. Now, do you think there's any more mergers or purchases of any of these smaller Bitcoin miners, Tom?
The one company that jumps out at me that could be bought by another one of these companies, and this is just, and I've seen nothing to indicate this, so this is 100% just my own personal speculation. Hive, very quietly, has basically upgraded their entire fleet. And they have growth plans. They're at 5.6 exahash. I think they have growth plans to get to 13 exahash. Their market cap is still low enough and their fleet, they have a good, very efficient fleet. Their overhead is low. To me, that's a company that I would have my eyes on. So if I had to truly guess, I would say none of these companies are going to merge with any of these companies. That's what I really think. But, Hive's a candidate. Obviously, we were in the middle of a kind of put on pause, but Riot is the largest shareholder in Bitfarms. So there still is a potential hostile takeover in the works there. On record, I don't think that's where I would go if I was Riot.
What do you think about any? I mean, when do you think they're going to wind down?
You've got the 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 Bitcoin miners that are even, a just tiny, small fraction of these companies. I don't even know how they're still in existence. Any, Gree, no offense. And if you own these, some of them are making nice runs. Doesn't mean they can't go up, but I just don't know. What's Gree's formula for success? What's Any's formula for success? It's hard for me to see. And as
they're still worth $26 million. It's crazy. That went from $1 billion down to 25 million bucks.
Right. They at one point, Any had put out a press release that they put a purchase order that would have made them the largest Bitcoin miner in the world. So now, having said that, yes, did we all laugh at that press release? And I think next to nobody believed it. That was the Gatorade machine, if you remember. So, but, you know, that goes to show, you know. So we dropped 7 miners off of our list because they're 1/10th, 1/20th, 1/50th the size now from a market cap standpoint of these companies. And you can even see Bit Digital down here at the bottom. They're mining 50 Bitcoin a month. I mean, yes, you know, if that's part of if it's a piece of, and they are working on their high performance computing, which is becoming a larger and larger piece of their business, but that's starting to turn into a really small company. But they have a solid balance sheet. You know, it's a decent company in my opinion. Old Jock, member for 21 months. Thank you very much, Old Jock. Old Jock said, do you think Iron will add 10 exahash to achieve their 31 by the end of 2024? So I actually do have confidence that Iron will get to the 31 exahash by the end of 2024. Iron has done a spectacular job, in my opinion, of doing what they said they were going to do. If you remember, a year or a year and a half ago, I was very skeptical of Iron when they were at only a couple of exahash. They were a $200 million company. They did a $500 million at the market offering, and that scared the heck out of me. But I will tell you, they've been on fire, in my opinion, since then. They've done all the things they said they were going to do. Now, Iron is one of the companies that does not hodl Bitcoin. So, you know, you got to understand what your preference is on that. You know, some do, some don't. There's really now 3 companies hodling a substantial amount of Bitcoin. The 4th company would be HUT. They have over 9,000 Bitcoin, but, you know, in the last year, they've hodled like 10 additional Bitcoin. So, you know, that 9,000 is from days gone by. Maybe they'll start to hodl again if they can get back up and running. But Marathon, CleanSpark, and Riot, you know, Marathon's over 25,000 Bitcoin. Riot's over 10,000. CleanSpark's coming up. CleanSpark next month will pass HUT with over 9,100 Bitcoin. They're hodling all their Bitcoin every month. So those 3 have kind of run away with it. Cypher hodls a little bit of Bitcoin. Bitfarms hodls a little bit of Bitcoin, but much, much smaller numbers. And a lot of these, Wolf, Core Scientific, Iron, they just don't hodl any. They mine it, they sell it. So I know everybody has differences of opinion on that, you know. And right now, I will tell you this. Right now, the companies that are hodling their Bitcoin are not being rewarded. The companies that are putting out press releases on high performance computing and AI are being rewarded. I think that is going to flip in the next, you know, over the course of the next 6 months. I think you're going to see the hodl companies dramatically outperform the other companies and start to catch up. But, you know, if we go back to this chart, they got a long way to go. So if I go to the year to date, wrong year to date. So if I go to the year to date, right, the Marathon and Riot are 2 of the ones that are hodling, and CleanSpark, you know, Marathon and Riot are down 17 to 18%. Core Scientific's up 200%. TeraWolf's up 244%. So, you know, these 2 could still have a good run. I just think there's a lot more room to the upside when you look at these that haven't even started their run. But operationally, right, Riot or Marathon mines the most Bitcoin every single month. We'll see. Maybe 1 month, CleanSpark can steal that title from them. I don't think so. There's still a decent distance between them, but anything could happen. And, you know, nobody's close.
What do you think the best value is in a Bitcoin miner right now, Tom? If you were going Monday and you were getting into this game, which one would you buy?
It's a super hard question. With this chart, you know, we had 6 of these have 30+% moves to the upside this week. So a week ago, my answer was simple. It was CleanSpark. Now it's probably Riot. Riot, Bitfarms. I know these are not necessarily popular companies. Those are probably those are the worst 2 performers on the year. Right. But that's a reason that I think, you know, there's a lot of room for them to run, and they're a bargain. Marathon, Riot. Marathon has performed very well operationally this year. So in my opinion, and, you know, they're hodling Bitcoin. They've adopted a little bit of the MicroStrategy philosophy where they went out and got some convertible debt and bought 4,000 Bitcoin in addition to the fact that they're hodling basically 100% of everything they mine. None of that's paid off yet because people don't care. They're not interested yet. We have not even begun the rotation and the FOMO phase of any of this. So I think it will hit. So that's my opinion. That's why I look at this chart. That's why I do so many different charts. And this is one of the ones that I keep looking at. And, you know, if you hold Wolf and you're still holding it like Sour Melon Gaming, I don't blame you. This has been an unbelievably good investment over time, and it's probably still going to run. So I'm not saying these guys up here that are winning aren't going to keep running. I'm just saying there's a lot more room for a company down 18% to run than there is for a company up 200%.
Can you buy Cleanspark after hours or no? Since it would be Monday, right?
They're until they're unhalted.
So there's a chance they might not trade on Monday?
Monday morning, they have to.
Whoa. But the federal banks are, the federal government's probably closed.
Oh, yeah. Well, the NASDAQ's its own thing, so.
Yeah, I know, but whoa, it might not trade Monday.
I will be stunned if it doesn't trade Monday, but you're right. It might not trade Monday. That would be a disaster for them.
If that doesn't trade Monday, can you imagine? Oh my goodness.
And Andy's asking any update on Bitfarms, and the answer is not really. I thought their monthly operational report was lacking, and I think there's some clarity we need on what's going on at Bitfarms, in my opinion, that they did not give us.
When do they buy Stronghold?
I'm not exactly sure the day that deal closes. They've set aside the shares in their ATM. I'm not sure the day it closes. Midway saying Bitfarms has earnings on Tuesday morning, which are not going to look good. The earnings report for all of these companies are a nightmare, right? Core Scientific just announced a $400 million loss. All of these companies this quarter are going to be awful. But what I would be looking more at is what is their EBITDA? And, if they're somewhere around break even in the quarter ended September 30th, that is going to be everybody's worst quarter by far. That was the full, if we go back to this chart, all 3 months of this chart were in this downward trend. We averaged Bitcoin $60,000 during that quarter, $60,000 or $61,000. So that's going to be a bad quarter. It was all 3 months were after the halving. All 3 months were in this downtrend. And, most of these companies hadn't done, a lot of these companies have ramped up a lot in the later part of this time. And, obviously we now have Bitcoin. By the way, Bitcoin's at 76,451 right now.
That bum.
It's high on this chart was just a little. So every single chart is different. This is the Bitfinex chart. So if I go back to, I usually look at the Coinbase chart. The high on the Coinbase chart was $77,312. That was the high of the day and the new all-time high. So depending on what chart you look at, you can get a tiny little bit number. So Flame O or whatever it is said, joined late. What's up with Cleanspark? Did they get bought out? So no, they had a technicality. They made a clerical error on something that they filed with the SEC. And so their trading was halted until they fixed it. Don't know why it was halted all day. I think that was a bad result for them. But they did put out a statement that said this is non-operational. This has nothing to do with anything other than a clerical error that we made. And they spelled out exactly what it was. And it was, a small thing. Taking a look at my list. So let's. Okay, so there's another article I lost, but essentially there's an article on when is Gary Gensler getting fired? So we know that Donald Trump, and I think it was at the Bitcoin conference, said on day one, I'm firing Gary Gensler. So there was an article on that today that did say it could be as soon as January 20th, which is the day that's inauguration day. So
I would imagine a lot of people are getting fired on that day.
Welcome, Pug. The Pug abides. Welcome, my longtime follower, I know. Well, yeah, you're right. But, chief among them, that's a big position, and it seems like his time is nearly done. And I doubt very much there's too many fans on this stream of Gary Gensler. He has been no friend of cryptocurrency at all. So we'll see if there's a kinder, gentler attitude here towards cryptocurrency on its way.
I got to put you on the spot on one thing real quick.
Go ahead.
Putting you on the spot. Are you even or up on Riot?
I'm green on Riot.
Nice. Okay, good.
I'm green.
That's good.
That run put me, and it's just barely, but yes, okay. I'm glad you asked, because I've complained 100 times that I'm still red on Riot. So this week put me in the green. We'll see if we can stay there. I've been there before earlier in the year.
We don't go, by the way, guys.
We don't, but George, oftentimes we come up with 5 or 6 or 7 of the same things. So we both do our own prep.
Craig's -13.
And Donnell's asking, is dilution the reason that miners aren't at their highs, although Bitcoin is? So that is one of the reasons. Another reason is the halving. So the reward is cut in half. So Bitcoin needs to get a lot higher than its all-time high, just from an economic standpoint. The network has grown massively. Obviously, the stock dilution, so the difficulty level's up, the reward is down. A lot of these companies have done massive stock dilution. And the reality is, in previous cycles, it's somewhere over the next 30 to 60 to 90 days that the Bitcoin miners start to make their big run. And that can last for a significant period of time. So we will see if that holds true this time. 162 likes. Yes, if you would be so kind as to smash the like button. We're going for 200 likes. So if you would help us, we would appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who did smash the like button. Will Bitcoin hit 100K before the end of the year? That is your poll, George. 70% say yes. Bitcoin will hit 100K by the end of the year. And remember, we got to 77,000 today. So,
yeah,
it's not that far away.
And there is ways, if you do hold Bitcoins, there are ways to now leverage it for mortgages, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Keith is saying BitDigital BTBT has been great and it keeps giving and it's still cheap. So yeah, BitDigital and Hive, of the 12 companies that we follow, I'll just do this real quick. BitDigital's market cap is 634 million, and Hive is 552 million. Those are the only two that are under $1 billion. Well, I shouldn't speak too soon. Did they drive Bitfarms back under $1 billion? Nope, they're over $1 billion. So those two are about half the next smallest one. So, but if we go to the chart, right, you'll see, BitDigital mined 52 Bitcoin. Now, they have a much bigger high-performance computing component to their business, and that is generating revenue. But between BitDigital, Hut, now Hut just bought a lot of machines, so maybe this number will go up. Hive's mining 117. I just feel like it's hard at these numbers to compete with these companies at these numbers. Now, obviously, if your gross profit percentage is higher, some of these companies in the middle have a very low cost per coin. But, Iron is in 4th place, and they have a very low cost per coin. CleanSpark has a good cost per coin. Riot did not get as many energy credits this year as they did in years past. So their cost per coin did go up this year. And Midway saying, with all of Bitfarms' new sites in the US, I think Bitfarms is still a better buy here than Hive and Bit Digital. I do too, but I am watching. I want to see a more comprehensive update on where they stand at getting towards 21 exahash, because, you know, they went from confirming we're going to be at 21 exahash at the end of the year in every single one of their press releases to not even mentioning at all. So I feel like they got to do better than that. And I'm hoping that we get something mid-month, but at least at a bare minimum next month, let's get some more clarity on Bitfarms.
Tom, when do you think alt seasons will take off?
Good question, George. So some would argue Bitcoin dominance has hit its high. So let me look at that, and then I'll look at one other thing. So you can see Bitcoin dominance had 3 days here up over 60%. I mean, this was a massive, massive increase from this bottomed out. I mean, look where this bottomed out. This was down at 48%. It was down, you know, down at 42%. So we've now had 2 days in a row where Bitcoin has pulled back. Now, we've had periods like this before, so I don't know that it's done. I think Bitcoin's going to keep running, so I'm not sure. But if you look at what the altcoins have done, even Ethereum for the first time in a long, long time, in a 7-day period, they've outperformed Bitcoin. Ethereum's up 18%. Solana's up 20%. Solana did flip. We talked about this a week ago. Is Solana going to flip Binance? Well, they did it. They already did it, and it's not even close. They're running away from Binance. So Solana, not counting Tether, out of actual, you know, blockchains, they're the third largest. Tether's a stable coin. And, you know, looks like they're making a run, and they'll pass Tether at some point. We'll see.
So, Tom, I have a question about the God candle for Bitcoin.
Yes.
Here's the question. If we pull a double from now until the 20th of January, would you call that a God candle?
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, everybody has that's a term. There is no strict definition for it. But, you know, if Bitcoin doubles in that short period of time, that's the parabolic move up that people are looking
like
for,
100%.
Waiting for.
I mean, I would say right now there's a good chance that we could be seeing that. And remember who said it first, guys?
George said it here. That's a bold prediction, and that would be and in that scenario, I think you're going to see some of these Bitcoin miners do eye-popping things. Because remember the economics. Even the Bitcoin miners that are at $30,000 or $35,000 a coin, if Bitcoin's at $120,000 a coin, you know, your gross profit is back to where it was in the last cycle at the peak. So you're going to see these things skyrocket, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, of course. I got to run, guys.
All right. Well, it's
Happy
that
week.
time. So any parting thoughts, George?
Yeah, Marathon's probably going to get over $100 at some point in time.
Marathon to over 100. All right.
That's why Steven asked that, and that's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
That's George's prediction.
guys.
Parting thoughts. Thank you, George.
Peace out. Let's do. Hopefully, we can have another great week next week.
Absolutely.
A lot of great things happening. And if you're new here, tell a friend. See you guys.
So we'll end the poll. Bitcoin to 100,000 by the end of the year. 72% say yes. And I'm going to take a moment to thank all of the members for showing up. I see a lot of you guys in the chat, so special thanks as always. Thanks to all the subscribers for showing up. Welcome to anybody new here. We are here every Friday with a live stream to talk about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, and anything else major that may have gone on during the week. Thank you to the 173 people that smashed the like button. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. I hope everybody made a lot of money this week. It was a very green week for Bitcoin, a very green week for the Bitcoin miners. So congratulations to those of you who hung in there. Hopefully it paid off for you this week. And everybody, enjoy your weekend. To the members only, we will see you on Tuesday. To everybody, we'll see you next Friday. Enjoy your weekend.